All right. Hello, folks. Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for another Legacy stream. Today, we are playing with Jeff C's Root Maze deck. And Tau Phoenix, thank you very much for throwing your Prime support this way. Very much appreciate it. Great way to start a stream. Okay, so first I want to show the list that Jeff sent me, and then I'm going to show the deck that I'm going to be playing. And normally I don't change the donation deck lists very much. But Jeff sort of sent me this novella with a whole bunch of thoughts about this deck list, and was like, "Hey, what do you think of this idea overall? Is this viable? Can we make this work?" And I said, "Yeah, I think we can make this work." So let's talk about the original idea, and then we're going to talk about the changes that I'm going to make. So the idea was to play a green-white Hate Bears Stompy style list that plays Root Maze alongside a whole bunch of mana denial elements like Thalia, Leonin Arbiter, Wingmare, and some other disruptive elements like Chalice of the Void and Thought-Knots here. The green was primarily for Root Maze, but the original version also had Sawtooth Demolisher. The idea being that you could go and mutate and destroy some of your opponent's lands, leaving them with a 3/3 behind. Now, I made some changes to this deck list, and that's not something that I normally do. And the reason that I made some changes is that I want this deck list to succeed. And I think the way that it was originally built was a little bit clunky and had some deck building errors. So let's talk about some of those, and then I'll show off my changes. So if we look at the 2-drop slots, we have 3 Thalias, 3 Aspirants, 3 Arbiters. And I feel like a lot of those cards should be 4-ofs, right? They're central to the strategy. We want to draw them just about every game. We should probably have 4 of them accordingly. And I felt that this largely was a 3-color deck that did not have things like fetch lands to smooth it out, and you really can't because of Root Maze. And it also doesn't have things like cantrips to help you hit those land drops. So this deck is looking to make green on turn 1, white on turn 2, sometimes colorless on turn 1 or 2. It wants to frequently have 3 mana on turn 2 as well. And it's also trying to play Thought-Knots here. And occasionally, maybe we want to hard cast this creature, so like green is also something that we want to consider. I felt like the original version of this deck list was just going to end up being a little bit clunky, so I did some editing and some retooling. And my hope was to make this closer to a 2-color deck list, where the green is this light splash that's primarily for Root Maze, and we go a little bit away from the Thought-Knots here, so we don't always need the colorless mana. So let's take a look at the version that I put together for this stream. Okay, here's where I ended up with after making some changes. So starting with the mana base. The original mana base was a little bit more colorless than I might have liked. And there were a couple budgetary things in there. The list was playing Temple Garden, rationalizing that the downside of it wasn't, that big of a deal when Root Maze was around. But Savannah Online is like $1, so we can totally play with Savannahs and not worry about that budget thing. So another thing that I was worried about with the original mana base was that with like 4 Ancient Tombs, I think it had 4 Brush Lands, 2 Horizon Canopies, that there was just so much life loss there in the mana base itself. And so I wanted to try some other things that could give me green on turn 1 while also not hurting me. And so we're playing a full play set of Savannahs, and then I threw in 2 Razor Verge Thickets. Normally, I don't think these sorts of lands make the cut by Legacy standards, but seeing as this deck has a very strange demand of no fetch lands and also wants green on turn 1, I think that's probably good. All right, so starting with those mana base changes, I made it so that we had more green sources. I cut, I think, a couple City of Traders, a couple of the brush lands. I cut the Ghost Quarter, and I made it so that we can cast Root Maze more reliably on turn 1. And Ayedhid question mark. Thank you very much for throwing your support this way. All right, thing number 2. I cut our mutate friend. I understand the logic of it being there, but I think the fewer green cards we run, the better. And I think giving the opponent a 3/3 in Legacy is actually a little bit spooky, right? If you think about something like Delver of Secrets, that's a 3-power clock, and it's very good. So I think the downside of the Beast Within here is pretty real. Now, growing something like a Thalia into a larger creature is pretty cool, and I respect that a lot. But I think sticking to the prison plan and getting more things like Thalia Heretic Cathar in and increasing the number of these other creatures that we play probably ends up better. You can call me Ad. All right, that works way better. Ad, thank you very much for your support. Hope you're having a great day. All right. So I think overall, this puts us in a place where we end up more consistently casting our prison spells in a way that's meaningful, and it allows us to stack up this hate turn after turn after turn. And another thing eliminating that green sawtooth creature does is that it makes it so that I can operate on fewer lands. I don't need to get to that 4th mana in order to do that, and we've trimmed down to just 1 copy of Thought-Knots here in the main deck and another in the sideboard. All right, so let's talk about that sideboard. And the original sideboard did have Winter Orb, but I cut it. I don't think we need Winter Orb. Like, we're on a lot of mana denial. Root Maze, Thalia, Leonin Arbiter, Wingmare, other Thalia, kind of Archon, Wasteland as well. Like, Winter Orb felt overkill. I want to make sure I have enough bodies to actually turn sideways and close the games. That's why I cut Winter Orb. All right. Most of the original sideboard is here. Of the 2 columns, I think everything on the left was in the original. I do like Hushbringer as tech to potentially fight against the Doomsday decks. That might be able to kind of play through the mana denial elements in a way that a lot of other combo decks can't. The stuff on the right are my additions. I felt like another source of life gain was probably good. Like, we have Ancient Tombs, Horizon Canopies, there's a Brushland in there. I'm going to do a decent amount of self-damage. So against decks like Delver and other small creature decks, I wanted more life gain. I wanted a couple of generic answers to things. I think we can get away with just a couple of white cards. And so I decided to play a couple of Skyclave Apparitions as generic catch-all things for planeswalkers, artifacts, enchantments, and even, I guess, like creatures sometimes. And then I decided a couple of Armageddons would be good. I can see Uro decks being a problem if they do make it to the end game. So just like nuking 5 of my opponent's lands probably makes it so that they don't get to ever flashback that Uro, escape it, and we're probably good to go. And then I played 1 Thought-Knots here because I figured, hey, just having another fat body in the board that I can use to sub out some of the suboptimal cards is probably an okay thing. Anyway, for folks who watch this on the YouTube end, I hope that that process makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions, why I'm not running any certain cards, and please consider throwing me a like before we get this video started here. Oh yeah, baby. It's Root Maze time. All right. We have turn 1 Root Maze, so we don't get to mulligan this hand. Let's go. If Root Maze gets answered, I still have like Thalia into Wingmare. Like, and that plus 2 Wastelands is pretty insane. Alright. I wonder if my opponent is double queuing or something. No, Tilcor, I think we're tilted just about as far down the prison route as we possibly could be tilted. Like, look at this opening hand, right? Oh, I see. It looks like my opponent was making some difficult mulligan decision. Alright, we look to be paired against Reanimator. Which probably means that I need to not play Root Maze on turn 1 and instead just Wasteland them. Like, I've got to make sure that they don't put the big dumb idiot into play. Ooh, they did not put a fatty into play. Yeah, I mean, we're going for the mana. Rats. Fetch another Badlands. You won't. Okay, so now the question is, do I actually play the Root Maze here? I think the answer is no, because my opponent can go off on one land pretty easily. So I think I just go Savannah this turn, Ancient Tomb Wingmare next turn, and then try to play Thalia plus Aspirant the following turn. It's a little sad to not play like our marquee card in game one when we had it in our opening hand. But given the unique situation we're in, where like our opponent could just win the game on one land pretty easily, um, I don't think I can afford to play the Root Maze here. Your Thoughtseize resolves. My hand is redundant as fuck. Notably, taking Vryn Wingmare there might have been better than taking Thalia. Ooh. Alright. Now we get to do stuff. I think I'm going to continue this plan. So the reason to play out Vryn Wingmare over some of the others is that there's a Faithless Looting in my opponent's graveyard, and I want that to cost 4 mana instead of the 3 that they currently have. I would love a white source for my turn. Yeah, Luminarch Aspirant is really good in Vintage, and just good in Legacy. In Vintage, it solves very specific problems that you have. In particular, things having to do with the shops matchup. Oh, baby. That's very good. So in Vintage, you have to worry about Mishra's Workshop decks creating a large-ish body that's bigger than like your 2/1s and 2/2s and 3/1s and whatnot. And so Luminarch Aspirant allows you to spiral a little bit. All right, I feel like my opponent has Entomb. Entomb currently costs 2 mana. So what do I want to shut off? Like, I can play Chalice of the Void. And have a chance at stopping them from getting a creature. I think I'm supposed to do that. I think I am supposed to Chalice on 1. Which costs 3 mana currently. Root Maze and Chalice 1. Yeah, I guess I should actually cast the Root Maze, right? Yeah, we can... Oh no, because the Root Maze also costs 1 more. So that doesn't work. I knew there was a reason why I mentally had, like, not done that. So I shut off Reanimate specifically here, but my opponent can still Exhume or Animate Dead, but I can't Chalice on 2 because of my own Vryn Wingmare. Yep. I do have 2 Karakas in this deck that I can find. Alright. What is the plan now? How do I win? I basically need to beat this Grizzlebrand. I can jump block for a long time. A long time. I think I need to get an Archon of Emeria into play, and then beef that up. I can technically wasteland that, if that's something that I want to do. I'm going to take this first hit from Grizzlebrand before I start chump blocking. Alright, I think I just do this. I don't think I wasteland the Verdant Catacombs. I think my life total is going to be too touchy. Do I crash in for 5? I'm sorry, Bryant. Did I forget my null rods in this deck list? We can drop and add them in. I think I'm just going to swing with this. Yeah, that is a World Gorger. It's a weird game right now, for sure. That's going to enter tapped. Oh wait, no, we didn't actually play the Root Maze. So it only probably enters tapped. Ooh. Alright, Grizzlebrand is still swinging. That's fine. We'll go ahead and just preserve my life total here. We'll try to use Luminarch Aspirant to grind through the Grizzlebrand. Yeah, our beloved Pegasus is dead. We have another one. So at the cost of 2 life, we can buy another turn of chump blocking. So here's the funny thing about this World Gorger Dragon in the graveyard, right? Like, we have Archon of Emeria. So I don't think our opponent gets to return the World Gorger Dragon all that easily. Nice. Brushland is actually quite good. That means I don't have to tap Ancient Tomb. Good stuff. Good stuff. I don't think I can play Chalice on 2, right? Like, we need to beat the Grizzlebrand that's in play currently. Like locking out an Animate Dead effect is cool and all, but, like, I need to not die to this. I'm at 8. Shallow Grave. Okay, what are you doing now, though? Like, you have a World Gorger Dragon, but... Also, why did you do that before I attacked? Little confused. That would have been a hell of a gotcha. Oh, wait, hold on. They had to do it in response to Bring Wind Weir for mana. Never mind. JK, I figured it out. Hmm. Does this all just work swimmingly for me, actually? Right? Because, like, all these things enter. The Animate Dead doesn't have a second target in the graveyard. They have to, like, pitch another card to Chrome Mox. Yeah. Actually, I guess they could get back one of my creatures. Yeah, this one is odd for sure. Now, like, nobody gets stuff. Grizzlebrand is now one bigger, which is a little annoying. Alright. Am I taking this? If I take this, I go to 1, and then next turn I can double block and kill Grizzlebrand, but then Rin Wingmare kills me unless I top deck another flyer. Or I can just chump block the Grizzlebrand. Eh. Yeah, I think I take this one. Just feel bad. Now the Ancient Tomb isn't a land. I think I could just, like, hope to spike another flyer here. Like, I have Archons, I have Wingmares. That's somewhat realistic. Oh yeah, this game is odd. Just, like, 100% for sure, very strange. I'm not used to thinking about World Gorger Dragon with Archon of Emeria in play. That's just not on my normal register of things that I've thought about in Legacy specifically. And I've played it with Archon plenty in Vintage, but you don't really see World Gorger Dragon there. You have like objectively more powerful things to be doing, like Tinker and Paradoxical Outcome and whatnot. We're making our opponent think. That's good. If other big creatures go to the graveyard, I start to have problems. Oh. Alright, I think I just have to, like, hope that my opponent doesn't see the line that kills me. Also just attack in with this and see if they block. Oh, they do block. Now I can attempt to trade for the Grizzlebrand. Hmm. Alright. I mean, their hand can just be absolutely gas at this point, right? Like, they can probably just get the Grizzlebrand back and, like, I die. Oh. Fair. We're just gonna let that one resolve and let our opponent have the collective brutality kill. Nice. Alright. We could play Hushbringer against World Gorger Dragon. That's kind of hilarious. Alright, so I want Thought Not Seer. I want Rest in Peace. Hushbringer and Swords to Plowshares are maybes. Alright. So I think unfortunately in this matchup, like, this is not the time for the Root Maze. The Root Maze will be fine versus like some of the slower controlling decks that need a decent amount of mana to operate, but that's just not the case here. Everything else is more or less reasonable. Jarl Berserk, thank you very much for your support. Very much appreciated. Playing Hushbringer? Are we playing Swords to Plowshares? Is Thought Not Seer too slow? That's another thing. Apparition hits Animate Dead, but that's basically it. Maybe Thought Not Seer is slow. Hmm. I don't know on like Hushbringer versus Swords to Plowshares versus Thought Not Seer in these final spots. Like the Thought Not Seer is a really good follow-up play after another Hate Bear, but like it is 4 mana. Let's play Hushbringer versus World Gorger Dragon because it's funny, and play one Swords to Plowshares. Alright, I have no turn 1 play. I have a respectable turn 2 play. But I think I can do better than this. This is a 5-lander. This hand is much better. Oh, I don't actually have another card to pitch the Chrome Mox, right? This is still pretty good. I think I'll keep this one. Alright, so we have a Chancellor to worry about here. I don't really want to get Thought Seized this turn. The next turn I can play City of Traders into Thalia and just ignore the Chancellor tax, and then follow it up with Archon of Emeria. A Leshnorn. Hoo-hoo. That's bad. Yep. Alright. Alright, so we have a Chancellor trigger to remember, which means that I can't play Archon on my turn. A Leshnorn is very good. Very good. Luminarch Aspirant, like, makes it around the table, then we can at least create something that lives through a Leshnorn, but, like, if our opponent has the reanimation spell here, life is bad for me. Yep, seems bad. Oh, maybe not. There's a chance. Serenity and Children of Corliss go into the bin. I'm going to return Thalia. Let's see what my opponent returns. Oh, rats. Alright, notably, Aleshnorn is a slow clock. We can find Swords of Plowshares. We can find a Caracas. Alright, now life's bad. So Aleshnorn not only shrinks my creatures, but grows my opponent's creatures, so that's pretty swift. I think this is the point where we can comfortably throw in the towel here. GG's, opponent. GG's. Alright, and looks good. Opponent's on the play. Alright. Are we playing a turn 1 Root Maze versus Delver? Seems sus. Like, if it was just, like, Ponder Pass or something, I'd 100% be good with it, but, like, now that our opponent has just played a threat on turn 1, I probably can't just ram the Root Maze and then not play Thalia turn 2. I think I just have to go Wasteland past. And then try to play, like, Thalia into other Thalia into Thought-Knots here. The good news is, like, this deck is naturally going to play around Stifle pretty well. That's what I wanted you to do on turn 1 instead. Alright, that was top, which isn't good news for me. Alright, Chalice or Thalia. I think I play Thalia. Like, Chalice gets got by Force of Negation, that Thalia does not get got by. Fair. That's bad. Yeah, now we're just under the gun, right? We're very much being clocked here. Don't have a Vryn Wingmare or an Archon to trade with that Delver currently. Means I have about 5 turns. I think that means I continue to play creatures. I need to pressure my opponent back. But it's really awkward to be, like, not playing this Chalice. I'm just under so much immediate pressure. That's also very bad. Like, now it's hard for me to kill my opponent before I can kill them. So, like, I have to trade with this Delver. Okay, there's something to trade with the Delver. I think this turn needs to be attempt the Chalice of the Void turn. Yep, okay, there's the Force of Negation that I had previously played around. Now I want a land. Because I want to be able to play Vryn Wingmare while also bouncing Uro. Because I don't get to let that Uro attack. Like, that is on the list of things that can't happen. Uh, that's not great. I also don't think I played Root Maze here in case I get Wastelanded, and my opponent has almost... Well, actually, Root Maze does slow down an opposing Wasteland. Okay. Yes. It's a little weird, though, because it makes it harder for me to, like, Caracas bounce the Uro later, but I think my opponent's going to have trouble refueling their graveyard quickly. Don't have the time to play this. It's Brenwing Maritime. Which unfortunately will make it harder to, like, cast the Chalice to protect me from the 1-drops later on, but c'est la vie. Fuck. Seems like kind of a lazy brainstorm. White? Very well. I am going to kill myself by casting Archon. Oh no, I shouldn't show them that card. I didn't show them that card yet. All right, yeah, we're dead here. The 1 damage from the Horizon Canopy kills us. All right, what do I want versus Delver? We probably don't get to do that, and I probably don't get to do that. I want Swords of Plowshares. Hushbringer is awkward, huh? I can make their arrows stick around as 6/6. Maybe we don't play that. I'll have a number of other cards that I can be thinking about playing, and those are these cards right here. I think I want... Man, these are all pretty good. This art is too sexy for YouTube. I tried to use this art for a thumbnail, and I had to blur out the lips or it wouldn't let me use it as a thumbnail. Where's my cut? Or maybe cuts. Did I go down like Thalia Heretic Cathars? That's a 3 of. It doesn't trade with... Doesn't trade with Delver. I want to keep all my flyers. Actually, maybe I go Chalices out if I'm bringing Swords to Plowshares in, as awkward as that is. Okay, yeah, if I board Chalice out, then I can also board in the Skyclaves and keep 2 Thalia Heretic Cathars. Brushland doesn't always hurt you. Brushland also makes colorless. And is sick! We're gonna go for Arbiter on the play. That is a respectable force of will. Our opponent has passed the force of will check. We'll play Thalia around a daze here. And then we can either redeploy Thalia or play an Archon next turn. That's good for later. Not now, but later. Archon of Emeria is a very strange design in that, like, part of it is symmetrical and part of it isn't. I just find that odd. It wasn't an all or nothing thing. Oh, that's like one of the worst possible things that could happen to us there. Now I need to rip another land. Okay, I did. Great. I don't know what exactly our opponent's build looks like. Because, like, we know they have, like, both Lightning Bolts and Swords to Plowshares, which is interesting. I mean, I'm going to presume that it's some way to try to get ahead in the mirror. Our chalices are sitting in the sideboard because we brought in Swords to Plowshares. Take them off white, take them off red. Take them off red, they've used 2 Swords to Plowshares already. Oh, Sylvan Library is terrifying. We just leaning into this? I think we're leaning into this. I mean, you love it when your opponent casts a Preordain rather than answering your stuff that's on board or playing a threat. Well, that was top, though. That's spooky. Eh. I want more pressure here. This is fine, too. But Sylvan Library helping my opponent filter their draws is, huge. Yeah, I've used 3 of my 4 Wastelands. It's pretty unlikely we're gonna see the last one. It's possible. 1 in 46 each turn. Alright, I've now been Wastelanded off of white, since we have a Spirit Guide under this. That's a shame. Alright, do you have the bolt? Alright, the good news is I have an answer to that. The bad news is I don't have an answer to that now. Also, do you really need to play Sulfur Elemental if you presumably have a set of bolts and of Swords to Plowshares? Go to my opponent's turn. Oh, now all Swords to Plowshares that. Because if they have Force of Negation, they have to pitch cast it right here. I don't even know what to say about that. That was just rude. The good news is this rest in peace is still here, though. It's possible I'm not supposed to play this land out, but I would rather have a colorless source get wastelanded than a colored source. Okay, now the next Uro is terrifying. Yeah. Answering 20 life will not be hard when I can't do anything. Like, our opponent has multiple Force of Vigors and Sulfur Elemental and 8 1-mana removal spells. Don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do against this. This hurts. Like, I still need to play it, but, like, Skyclave Apparition will probably cost me 3 life to cast. And, like, this Uro is still coming too. Yeah. Yeah, basic planes are sick. For sure. Hurts so good. Gonna ugh. We answer the Uro. The Tarmogoyfs are small for right now. Maybe I can buy some time. Like, a Rest in Peace, for example, would just be like a Stone Cold Nuts draw. Not anymore. Alright, yeah, we're not beating that. Alright. GG. Opponent's deck seems very good at beating Death and Taxes style decks. So there are times when you look at these hands from these White Eldrazi style decks, and you have to ask yourself, am I gonna keep this hand? Then you say yes, and you just accept that horrible things can happen. I think I have to keep the hand that has turn 1 Chalice with a great follow-up play of Wasteland, your non-basic land. We have a good number of hits when we include the Chrome Moxen. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, we're at 17 hits for a white source. Not the best, but over 3 turns, we can probably realistically expect to draw one. Oh, we're just gonna like play against Death and Taxes, and then this Chalice is embarrassing. That's not good. Our Chalice Wasteland opener is not going to be good against Plains. Pretty legit Plains, just by the way. My Luminarch Aspirant is going to be fucking insane. Alright. I think I'm gonna bend this one. Rationalizing that the Luminarch Aspirant already beats Thalia in one turn anyway. That is not a Caracas, that is a Flagstones. That sucks. I mean, I need white mana. Alright, I need to draw a flyer. I need to draw a flyer so I can beat the Flicker Wisp. But if I can do that, life's pretty good. I've shut off a huge portion of my opponent's deck. The issue is, like, between Flicker Wisp and my Ancient Tombs, I'm going to take a lot of damage. Like, I kept the Vryn Wingmare previously so that I could trade with a flyer very specifically, and then the Flicker Wisp on my Chrome Mox ruined that plan. I think it was very much the wrong choice to hit Ancient Tomb there, for what it's worth. Oh, fuck. Yep. I do not like Flagstones as a card. I do not think the upside of that card makes it better than a basic Plains. Alright. I get one more draw step to draw a flyer. Like, we were weak to exactly one thing, and it was a flyer. And we had protection from that our opponent picked apart. Yes, and I think that it is not worth playing Flagstones in a list with Cataclysm most of the time. Like, Wastelands are real, Blood Moons are real, Back to Basics are real. The Like, the number of times I have gotten a land off of flagstones is so incredibly low compared to the number of times where I have lost to a flagstones for it not being a basic plains. Like, I lose to flagstones not being basic plains so many times. All right. Probably want Hushbringers. Probably want Jittes. Probably want swords. Backleaves and Thought Knots here are boardable. I'm not going to play Chalice. I'm not going to play Root Maze. Now, if I can go down on some number of legendary creatures and bring in these three, that's probably a good thing. Yeah, so Flagstones is good in something like the Elvish Reclaimer deck, where you can like use it as a ramp thing because you have these Elvish Reclaimers. Like, I think it's totally fine there and makes sense there. All right. It's a little awkward to bring in both um Hushbringer and Thought Not Seer and like Skyclaves in at the same time. I think I'm going to take the Thought Knots here as a bigger body over one of the Thalia Heretic Athars, and then I'm not sure about the Skyclave Apparitions. It's awkward. I think it's okay to go down 2 drops, and assuming that the game gets a little bit slower for these post-sideboard games. Yeah, this is fine, but not insane. I have produced the +1/+1 counter machine. That's fine. Now we're insulated against like Stone Forges and Recruiters. I think I'm just gonna play the redundant Leonin Arbiter here. I don't want to just get like end of turn Source to Plowshared into a Stoneforge or something. All right. Now we'll get that out of the way. I'll get a 2/2 back. And now we can just floop this down and bash in for 2. Our opponent is probably favored as a whole, but I have a lot of board presence. They're having some issues with paying for something. Do they have like a Gideon that they can't cast? So now any of my opponent's search effects are live, which is a problem. Okay. Doesn't get you too far. Now I can potentially get a 3/3 token later. Yeah, apparently we're illusion tribal. I do need to like draw a Jite or like some piece of gas now though. Yeah, I mean I'm gonna just lose that batter skull if I don't have a good draw this turn, unfortunately. Yeah, that's not gonna do it. Like maybe I can still get there with the timely swords to plowshares, blowout. But like Skyclave Apparition isn't gonna answer that. I mean, we just had our first 3 cards that were very relevant answered. All right, we're dead. This is the point where the scales have tipped in the other direction. Like our opponent takes 2, goes to 8, they attack me to 12. The illusion doesn't get to get in the red zone anymore. Don't believe there's any reason to do this mid combat. Powder Skull's Germ doesn't fly. Or maybe that wasn't mid combat and I was just lagging. We are at about the time where it's appropriate for a moto restart. I take that one back. That's not the right land to port. I don't think it matters with that draw. All right, we're gonna toss in the towel here. We're not getting this one. GG's. Be keeping this hand. I would love to win a die roll today though, because I think my deck is just like noticeably better on the play than on the draw. Um, but we haven't. I don't think we've taken a die roll so far. So this is going to be a turn 1 Chalice of the Void that beats Days off Elvish Spirit Guide. Come on. Daze it. No! Not Force of Will. You were supposed to have the Daze. Hmm. This is like a blue-green show and tell deck. How are we going to do against that? Maybe okay. I have a lot of hate in hand. Make show and tells pretty expensive. I beat just like the creature coming into play because I can just Caracas bounce it, which is why I'm not going to show Caracas. Ooh hoo hoo. Ooh hoo. All right. Either way, I think I start here. Okay, it resolved. Now, do I use the Spirit Guide to play Thalia Heretic Cathar? I think I do. I also think I'm willing to hurt myself with Horizon Canopy. Again, I don't want to show this Caracas, if at all possible. Yeah, so talking about the community video that I'm going to release tomorrow. There's been a lot of hubbub recently over on places like the Legacy subreddit about like bad moderation, people doing things that are hurting the community, you know, lots of stuff on Twitter that is just spreading negativity and whatnot. And I figured it was probably time to release a video talking about some of that sort of stuff. Ooh, the 3-mana ponder. All right, do I want to crack Horizon Canopy in this turn cycle? Yes, I think I do. The appeal of Luminarch Aspirant is growing your creatures out of range of some removal spells. And it's also just very good in fair matchups where the board stalls. think your like Maverick style matchups, right? Or like a Death and Taxes style deck versus a colorless deck. Anytime the matchup is going to go long, it's just very nice to have Luminarch Aspirant. It produces so much power for so little mana. Okay, maybe we're not playing against Show and Tell. Go with the flyer here. All right, my opponent's done with me. Okay, so what's my opponent playing? They could be the blue-green Omni deck that has the Urros and the Icefang Coatls and Veil of Summers. They could be a multicolored control deck. Notably, our opponent didn't play a fetch land until that Misty, which just entered tapped. How to board, how to board, how to board. If this is show and tell, I basically want like the Thought Knots here, and that's probably it. This is control, I probably want the Rest in Peace, maybe the Skyclaves, the Armageddons. That was Root Maze. I don't know if I Root Maze on the draw. I think I Root Maze on the play. Again, if we're just playing against show and tell and they can go off on 2 lands, then Root Maze is bad. Oh yeah, I love Luminarch Aspirant because I've played with the card and know what it does. The people who yell very loudly about it have never played with the card, and they don't get it, and that's fine. I think I'm fine against Ice Fang, so I don't think I need something like a Swords to Plowshares, but I do need to respect Uro in some way, whether that's Swords to Plowshares or Rest in Peace. It's just very awkward when I don't really know what my opponent is playing for sure. I think I'm going to bring in both copies of Rest in Peace. And go down 1 Archon? Question mark. Juice Master, thank you very much for following, as well as OG Trilla. I missed you a couple minutes ago. Yeah, like I don't know how many more screenshots I can take of like Luminarch Aspirant just like single-handedly taking over a game and doing disgusting things, or people are like, yeah, okay, fine, it's good. This is a weird hand. I go Chromox, Imprint, Armageddon, and have turn 1 Thought Nazi, or turn 2 Thalia. Yeah, sure. It's a weird one. It'll be a little bad versus something like a Force of Will. That's also pretty good. I don't get to turn 1 TKS very often. Yeah, alright. Shark Typhoon. Okay, so we are playing against a control deck. Alright, now we know. Oh yeah, I like a lot of the Eldrazi art. They have this weird kind of Lovecraftian vibe to them. Now I wish I hadn't pitched the Armageddon though. Current plan for next turn is play Thalia Heretic Cathar, then play Wasteland afterwards. I enjoy Lovecraft's works. Did the like big ol' audiobook of his collected stories over a couple of months. Probably 2 years ago at this point. And it was really neat, really enjoyable. It was the sort of thing where like I'd go for a jog and I'd listen to one of the short stories. Gets a little tedious sometimes, and it's not necessarily the sort of thing that you just like throw yourself fully into in the same sort of way you do a novel. But it's one of those things that like I'm glad that I did it. You know, the Lovecraft stuff comes up all over the place in various aspects of nerd culture. Um, I am not like I have familiarity with Warhammer and 40K in that like a bunch of my friends have played, and I'm vaguely aware of what's going on with some of that stuff, but I have not played myself. Generally speaking, I'm of the opinion that if people are trying to use Latin, that's a net positive, right? Like that's engagement with another language and with another culture. So even if they don't, quote unquote, get it right, I'm still more or less good with that. I occasionally get bothered by people like making no effort to do pronunciation, though. Like, Latin as a whole is a really easy language to pronounce. There's like three big rules, and if you follow them, you're in good shape. C's sound like K's, V's sound like W's, and AE sounds like the I noise that you hear in buy. Cover those things, and you're good. Those are cards. Um, Council's Judgment is probably uncastable. I think this game is over before Back to Basics matters. Like, I just kill my opponent in 2 more attacks. I think I take the Uro. Yeah, there's a YouTube video in Latin. Back to Basics is really good too. Not super well set up to beat the Uro long term. I'm gonna take the Uro and try to end this game now. Yeah, I think if I just take the Uro so they can't gain life and make it so that like the Council's Judgment is dead in their hand. If they play back to basics, that's 7 damage. I think that's fine. But it does mean if they can get a basic land this turn and play back to basics and then start answering my board or playing Uro, then I'm scared. God damn it. All right, so there's the 7 that like they most certainly knew they were going to take for playing back to basics. So if I get in another 7, I probably win. But like the cool thing is that like we're not going to get ambushed by something like an Ice Fang Coatl, right? And our opponent doesn't have access to white mana currently, and so it'll probably be hard to get it because it's going to enter tapped like that. So we hit them for 7, and then their fetch land isn't actually live, right? Because they can't fetch. So now they can't fetch. They can't take cards with Sylvan Library. Oh, lol, lol. Hold on. Didn't realize that. Oh, baby. Hmm. Hmm. Also, like, literally, how does our opponent get out of this spot now? Right? Because their creatures will enter tapped. Nice. All right, we are on the scoreboard now. Yep. Okay, fog. Fog would buy them a turn for sure. Constant mists, multiple turns. Okay. I can play a turn 2 Thalia Heretic Cathar, but I still can't win a die roll to save my life. So I play turn 2 Thalia Heretic Cathar, but then I don't actually have a turn 3 play because I can't play the Thought-Knot Seer since I've already used the Elvish Spirit Guide. I think I just mulligan this one. This hand is much better. I'm bottoming Root Maze, aren't I? I'm bottoming Root Maze. I'm sorry, Root Maze. If I was on the play, I 100% keep Root Maze on the play and play that on turn 1. But it's so much of an ask on the draw. Why couldn't we have been on the play for this? God, the turn 1 Arbiter. Turn 1 Arbiter would have been so good. Like, we would have stopped a fetch land and a green sun on the play. Because I want to have multiple Arbiters in play versus Elves. And, like, Thalia is borderline a dead card versus Elves. It, like, technically does something, but not really. If we were on the play. If we were on the play. Can't even, like, snag Dryad Arbor because of Quarian Ranger, too. Yeah, the bot died at some point. I need to, like, try to fix the bot. God damn it. I think we're dead on turn 3 through 1, 2, 3 different pieces of interaction. Fuel. 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 Alright. I need Swords to Plowshares, I need Jitte. I might just play Hushbringer as a flyer. I think Hushbringer, Skyclave Apparition, and Thought-Knot Seer fall into that category of like, yeah, maybe you can play these. I'm sorry, Root Maze, but I don't think that gets to happen. Assume I board out the Thalia Heretic Cathars. Are we playing Swords to Plowshares alongside Chalice? Because of Allosaurus Shepherd, I probably... Allosaurus Shepherd is so good. Alright. Do I do both on the play, and then I board out Chalice on the draw? That might make sense. Eh? Try this. Alright. I'll be keeping this hand. We have a Swords to Plowshares for their first idiot. And then, like, multiple different good follow-up pieces. There are many combos in this deck, for sure. Alright, I don't mind this at all. Let's play the Archon this turn. And then I can Swords to Plowshares on my opponent's turn without, like, running into the awkwardness of, like, Renwing Mare and Swords to Plowshares at the same time. Nice. This sort of thing is why Archon is really good in Vintage, when you can just, like, accelerate it out. I don't want to just Swords to Plowshares and Elvish Visionary, I don't think. Resto Kiki, thank you very much for following. That land's not a bad draw here. Ah, right. Double spell. Applies to me too. Okay, I forgot about that. So I missed 2 points of damage this turn because I didn't, like, attack in with Swords to Plowshares available. That's okay. I probably should have, like, attacked in. My opponent double blocks. I Swords to Plowshares 1 for the blowout. Otherwise, I play Vryn Wingmare post-combat. For someone asking why we didn't just play more Horizon Canopies earlier, this is a great time where, like, Horizon Canopy would have hurt us, but Brushland does not. I'll get another spell. Okay, yeah, you can do that. Oh, but you didn't pay correctly. Oh, that's not how that card works, unfortunately. Yeah. Wasteland? Not Wasteland. Alright, so Luminarch Aspirant was worth a Lightning Bolt worth of damage in this turn cycle because now this gets to attack in. Well, I guess it already could have because one of the Elvish Visionaries was tapped. I probably just Swords to Plowshares and Elvish Visionary this turn to just deny 1 mana with Cradle. I think that's worth my card and life. Might have put my counter in the wrong place last turn. Oh, don't worry about the record. Worry about the fact that the deck is sweet. I believe we're 1-3 at the moment. Firewood Symbiote's pretty sick. Now we'll put a counter on the Aspirant itself. Crash in with the whole team. Now you bounce Visionary. I wonder if not putting the counter on one of my flyers last turn ends up costing me this match. They could have gotten in for 1 more point of damage this turn, then had lethal the following turn. So Archon stops the glimpse-based stuff. This stops the Elvish Visionary-based stuff, and now Natural Order is the big thing that beats me, but there's not much that I can do about that. You have to pay one more because of the tax. You have the natural order. Alright. Not dead to this, right? 10 damage? It's no damage. Hmm. Yeah, if I had put my counter on one of my flyers 2 turns ago, I win this turn. Alright. In the hands of Karanos now. Whatever happens, happens. Don't think they can easily cast 2 decays to get rid of both of my flyers. I can go to 1. Notably, if this was the Horizon Canopy, we're dead. What do you got? Things that can beat me. Um, Basic Swamp plus 2 Abrupt Decays. I don't think that's gonna happen. Magic Lover, thank you very much for following. Um, Basic Forest plus Natural Order plus Crater Hoof does it. Uh, 2 Skylashers. Okay, we get another chance. All right. On the draw, I think Chalice of the Void loses some punch. I don't know if I'm supposed to play it on the draw. What would I have over it? I could play Thought Seer, 2 Skyclave Apparitions, and then like 1 Thalia. Like Chalice of the Void is in this weird situation in this matchup where like it's either amazing or it's awful, and there's very little in between because of how powerful Allosaurus Shepherd is. Like it shuts off so many cards in my opponent's deck. I don't know, maybe I keep them, but I need to have Skyclave Apparition on the play to help answer Allosaurus Shepherd. That might make sense. Like, go down a Thought Not Seer. And one Hushbringer, maybe? I don't know. Hushbringer stopping the Crater Hoof trigger is real. Maybe go down one of those. Still leaves me with 25 creatures. This is fine. But man, just again, this deck is so much better on the play. Like, now my opponent can maybe fetch or green sun for something important before I get the Arbiter into play. I think this is better than Wastelanding. There's too many things that my opponent can do, like Birchlaw Rangers, that make this Wasteland look pretty awkward for me. Oh man, just like don't play a land. Don't play a land. Don't play a land. Fuck yeah. Big Thalia and Wingmare are both reasonable cards that have different strengths. Like Big Thalia's tapped ability is very strong, but having some number of flyers that you can connect with in the air is also really good. This turn's interesting. For chat. I play Aspirant this turn instead. I can, but I don't know that it does me much good. My opponent wants to double trade here. I'll totally take that on this board. Thank you for the bits, Basic Swamp. Yeah, these are the sorts of situations where having an Aspirant shines. Whereas, like, normally these bears wouldn't have gotten to attack in this turn. Now I can send one of them in very safely. And then the following turn I can send in the other one very safely as well. Yeah, that's a bigger cat now. So, like, Aspirant is worth 3 damage this turn and 6 damage the following turn. That's pretty good for a white 2-drop. Putting the squeeze on real hard here. Next turn I get to play another Aspirant too. I can be attacking with 4 3/3s. That's interesting. I can just play that and eliminate Wirewood Symbiote. Good. No, I think I just want to play Aspirant. Because if I play Aspirant, then my original Aspirant can attack in safely as well. Yeah, this is good stuff. Cradle Natural Order doesn't kill me. Nice. Got most of our play points back. We'll take that. Oh yeah, we had Thalia Heretic Cathar. Yeah, so we were just good. Alright. So overall, what do we think of the deck list? We didn't win any die rolls tonight. That I think made Root Maze bad. Like, well, okay. Root Maze was bad to start with, right? Like we know that going in. This is one of those cute fun things that we try to do. But I think in a game 1 scenario, a turn 1 Root Maze on the play is really, really awkward for our opponents. But then I think there were either 2 or 3 times where we had Root Maze on the draw where, like, because of the acceleration we had, it was just better to do something like play a Chalice of the Void or play one of our 2-drops instead of playing the Root Maze. Or the Root Maze made it so that we didn't necessarily... Sorry, let me rephrase that. We couldn't necessarily curve out well if we played the Root Maze. And the same would have been true for our opponent, but when your opponent goes like turn 1 Delver Pass, you can't really play Root Maze afterwards, right? Like that doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I think the mana base was okay here. I think I did an okay job in trying to make this mana base work and cast Root Maze. But generally speaking, the mana base of a white Eldrazi style deck is already a little bit rough. And so making it worse by trying to make Root Maze work was maybe not optimal. I do like the degree of synergy that we had here, and we did do a lot of relatively powerful things. I'm gonna try to get the sideboard on screen here too. That work? Yeah, that'll work. So I think the core idea was okay. Like we went 2 and 3. That's a fine league for a brew. But, like, at the end of the day, you need to ask, like, is Root Maze better than another Hate Bear? Is Root Maze better than Sphere of Resistance or Thorn of Amethyst or something like that? And I'm not sure that the answer is yes. Um, like we sideboarded out Root Maze in all 5 rounds because conceptually it seemed like the weakest card in a lot of the matchups we were playing. So, like, talking about Root Maze a little bit. So it's not great if you're behind on board as of turn 1. If your opponent plays, you know, a Monastery Swiftspear or a Delver, it's really spooky to play a Root Maze afterwards. It's not great versus combo decks if they can just go off on about 2 lands. Like, I understand it conceptually as a bridge to try to get you to these other Hate Bears. But I don't know that it actually accomplished its job tonight. I believe it did get Force of Willed once, but outside of that, it just got sideboarded out. Otherwise, the tools that I had access to were pretty good. Hushbringer was interesting. Like, it's a little awkward with, like, the Thought-Knot Seers that were in the original deck and the Skyclave Apparitions that I added to the sideboard, but that's probably fine. Like, if you're playing a Hushbringer and it's good, it's probably really good. So there's some food for thought if you want to be messing around with Root Maze. Chat brought up Winter Orb multiple times as something else that could go in this deck. Winter Orb could maybe replace Root Maze. I don't know that you can get away with playing both of them. Like, this deck as is has 27 creatures. More realistically, it's closer to 23 because Elvish Spirit Guides are almost always mana sources instead of creatures. And if you cut 4 more creatures in order to put in Winter Orbs or something like that, or you cut a couple of these sideboard cards for Winter Orbs, you probably start running into some situations where you don't quite have enough finishers for a deck of this nature. Anyway, folks who watch this on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed it. If you made it to this point in the video, please throw me a like or a comment if you haven't already. That sort of thing helps out a lot, and I really appreciate it. And if you're really enjoying the content and you want to see your deck on the channel, donation information is always in the video descriptions. Have a great rest of the day.